Today we're at Final Inspection in Rochester, Massachusetts to talk about auto detailing and how badly you can screw up your car. 1, 2, 3. Hey everybody, welcome back to Carside Chat. I'm your host, Primo. Today I have with me Justin of Final Inspection Auto Detailing. He runs the shop here. How long have you been doing this?
I've been in business close to 20 years now.
20 years?
I've been on my own for the past 5.
Wow.
Going on 6.
Okay.
So, but I've been in the industry since around 2002.
How long have you been at this specific location?
Just over a year. We were on the other side of Rochester starting in 2016 up until last year. And it was time to move, needed more space, growing pains.
Right.
Not always a bad problem, but it poses challenges. So,
do you find an issue with kind of spacing about where things are and what they're doing?
No, not typically. No, everything's been pretty good, you know, especially around here. Everybody's pretty, laid back.
Well, that's the $1 million question is how has business been now that COVID's been a thing?
I was real worried, I think, with along with most people,
right?
Especially, around springtime last year when COVID started hitting, everybody's, I lost some business. I had people, they had lost their jobs, got laid off, and I get it. The last thing they're going to worry about is having their car detailed. You know, for a lot of people, it is a luxury. For some people, it's a necessity. So yeah, I did lose a little business, and then we ended up moving right in the middle of the summer last year. So by the time the move was done, the shop was up and going. I ended up having a big backlog of work, so that carried me all through the end of the summer and through the fall and into the winter.
Well, and that's the thing is I think that's what everybody is seeing is really that things kind of keeled over and they died off. But the reality is things just picked up. And now I see a lot of people that go, I think that's the biggest influx of why we need so many people to do jobs and work is because like all these people that didn't have stuff, now there's the train is flopping up. So just in case you guys remember, you gotta remember the Viper over here. This is the owner of the car. And like I said, thank you so much for letting us drive it.
Absolutely.
Did you hear the news about Battalion Cars?
You were telling me earlier about it, that we may have find a way to keep our supercars.
Yeah, that's right. So Italy is trying to find a way right now because cars like Ferrari and Lamborghinis are so limited edition that if they make a few of them, that it won't be that big a deal to be able to have them still be engined vehicles. And that's the thing is one of the things we were talking about before was the beauty and the raw power of, for instance, the V10 here, the V12, the sounds that they make. And my thing is I think it's just hard to really sell somebody on per se an electric vehicle that doesn't make any noise.
Yeah, it's definitely tough, especially if you've never driven one and that first time getting into one electric vehicle. It's definitely different. Coming from somebody that's always been a gearhead and into the high horsepower stuff.
I mean, there's enough noise behind us right now to blow. This is why he doesn't have windows here, is because we wouldn't have any left the second he started something up. So of all the cars that you've done, what is kind of, I guess, your most exciting car? In other words, Well, I guess starting off, I mean, you always have those benchmark vehicles, whether it's the very first, newest model Corvette, and then, the first Lamborghini, and then the first GTR, the first Ferrari. Those are always monumental cars. And then over time, I mean, not to sound mundane, I mean, at the end of the day, it ends up being, you start doing enough of them, it's another Ferrari, another Lamborghini, another Corvette. I'd love to do a Koenigsegg. I'd love to have one of those or a hypercar of that sort. It makes unique things to clean a car like that.
The first Rolls Royce that I've done or first Bentley, those are all monumental cars. It's always nice having those types of cars come in.
Right, exactly. So my thing was, and that's kind of the beauty of, this is why we kind of made our show in the first place, of driving cars like this. And we're not just driving cars like this. We've been driving a lot of different aftermarket vehicles. The Apocalypse Beetle, probably one of my favorite cars out there. I don't know why it is, because it tried to kill me, but it just ended up being like, those are the cars that you remember, it's like that car hated me. I want to drive it more just to be vindictive. But that was the thing is the more you're involved in cars and the more you see stuff, and these things are not, I want to tell people that they're not so out of touch as they think. Like, you can start a business and work in different things like this or wherever you're at, because, trust me, it's a huge world out there. There's tons of places you can do this stuff. You'd be amazed at how many buyers out there interested in or looking for somebody that they can trust, that can work on their cars. And that's the thing is the more you drive them, you start seeing cars. So at first, everybody says, I want the Lamborghini, I want the Ferrari. And then you drive it and you're like, well, now I want a 360 Challenge Stradale.
Yeah.
And then you kind of fall back and you're like, oh, now I want a Celica GT4, what do you call it, all-track. And you're like, it gets into these weird cars that you end up falling in love with. But in the end, you end up finding the car that you love.
Yep.
And you kind of end up going, and that's the thing is a car that you love, you're going to own longer than anything else.
Oh, without a doubt.
Right.
Without a doubt. Especially the Viper. I have no doubt. That car's staying.
Right.
That's been a childhood dream of mine.
That's awesome.
Since, early 90s when they first came out. I was a wee little guy.
Awesome.
And here I am. So living the dream.
So there's my thing. So let's say somebody is a dreamer and they buy their first Viper and now they're on now they got this car. I'm sure it's so funny how many times you go to shows, you and me both, you go to a shop and you see that, $400,000 Ferrari, $200,000 Ferrari, and you go there and you're like, do you ever clean this car? Like, do you have those moments, right? It's not just me. The thing is we tell people that you buy these cars, you want to take care of them. What do you see as the biggest pitfall for these guys? What are the things that they miss commonly when it comes to buying their, I just bought my car, bring it home, I'm going to bring it to you. What are you going to recommend?
Really just starting off from the get-go. Whether, if it's a slightly used vehicle, we always want to start, fresh, getting the paint corrected, removing any defects, getting everything looking right, and getting the proper protection on. Some people are really fanatical. They are, worried about stone chips and rock chips, so then we get into paint protection film, stuff like Expel. I have a gentleman, Derek, over at Kickin' Customs in Rainham, who handled.
We knew that shout out was coming.
Gotta give a shout out to my boy.
We'll forward him the video when we get
done. So he handles all that for me. Some people aren't as worried about that. They're just worried about more ease of maintenance and cleaning. So then we get into ceramic coatings and stuff of that nature. So really, you can go down the rabbit hole when it comes to detailing a vehicle. You can do as little or as much as you really want, and then obviously a customer's budget's going to dictate what gets done at that point. So
this is something else, because we go to this, and this is something that I saw in your flyer that you gave me, which I really was I love reading flyers. I don't know why. It's like, because you'll say stuff to people, and I did it myself. I was talking to him the first time we met, and I was like, yeah, this would be a great idea, and I don't think anybody does it. And then I go through his flyer, and it's like the fifth one down, so you're like, oh, yeah, okay, so you do that. But let's say you're a car show guy, and you're the guy that's looking for the trophy. And I tell people a lot of times that it's not the car so much as the presentation.
Without a doubt.
A lot of times I've brought stock vehicles to shows and won with them because we did the cleaning ahead of time and made sure the car was perfect. So let's say I want to win a car show. What would it be like I don't even want to say cost. In other words, to bring something in and say, hey, this is what I would do to that car to make sure that car was spick and span when it got to the...
So, like most vehicles, we would start off proper wash, decon process, clay, iron removal, getting everything squeaky clean. From there, we'd do the paint correction, removing swirls, defects, that nature. We would go as far as removing wheels, doing a wheels off service. If you got coilovers, clean and prep and coat all the suspension components, the faces and barrels of the wheels. Really, it just sets it off. You'd be surprised what, you have a nice clean car that's shiny, and then you can see the wheel liners and the arches are kind of a little dungy and dingy looking. Right. Getting all that cleaned and prepped and revived really makes a big difference. I almost sell more wheels off packages than I do anything else. I mean, it's a huge add-on on most vehicles.
Right.
And obviously, engine bay appearance. You want your engine bay looking good, clean and tidy. Not so much oily and greasy, but just clean and fresh and looking like it comes out of the factory. You know, we have a saying, the other guy's wax. So you want to make sure nothing's left behind, any creases and cracks, no compound or residue. All that stuff adds up on the overall look of the vehicle. Right. Streaky windows. Yeah. Even experienced detailers, everybody always complains. Windows are a pain. Heat and humidity can affect that. Nothing's worse than walking by a vehicle and seeing streaks and smudges in the windows. So have a nice crystal clear glass. Always a plus. So really just a complete go through, try to go over everything.
And that's the thing, is people don't understand these little small touches, especially like showing off your engine. When we were judging at the last Mission 22 rally, I was the only judge for it, and I was going to it. The people that ended up winning were the people that had their trunks were open, their interiors were open, the fronts were open. A lot of people were expecting, I don't know how you expect to win a show if your doors are closed and you have tinted windows. I think it's cool that you have tinted windows, but there's little things.
Door jams, all that trunk hinges, all that stuff.
Little swirls and little things, and that's at spider web cracking. That was huge. And that was back to the when we were at the Ferrari shop, and we're working on these cars, and I would go in and we'd take the pictures of the cars, and I would see these 360s and 430s, and it looked like a spider had made homes in them. And the thing is I don't know if you guys are seeing it or not. But it's one of those things. It's easy to take care of.
Usually once a vehicle's polished and looking right, I always tell people once it leaves here, how you touch that vehicle is definitely, it can make or break it. You can spend all the time in the world doing a black vehicle like I got behind me, and if you don't know what you're doing to wash and maintain it when it leaves here, you can just undo all that work. And that's the last thing I want somebody to do that comes in. They spend their hard-earned money, they have their nice car, they trust me with it, we do the vehicle. I go over proper maintenance with every vehicle when they leave here.
That's something that I really liked about what you did was it wasn't just, here's your car's clean and out and the thing is, a lot of people, and I hate this because I'm gonna say this, and I hope a lot of people don't get mad if you say it. There's a lot of auto detailers out there, and I'm not going to name names, that do this after you're done. When you have the customer and you've delivered them and let them gone home, then pat yourself on the back. When they're in, finally do that backfill on it. And that's the thing is you're sitting there with the customer and saying, hey, don't forget to do this. Don't forget to do that.
A, B, C, D, E.
Yeah, here's some products over here in the corner that you can use on your vehicle. And I think hair salons get it right. And so many people mess it up, and it was great, very refreshing to come here and see that done the way it needed to be done.
Oh, without a doubt.
And really say driving away. I wasn't driving away empty-handed. You'd had a bottle of soap in your hand. You had, here's your other stuff. Make sure that you do this right. And at any time I wanted to call, you answered the phone.
Yeah, exactly. So and I tell people, and I get calls randomly. People, I got this situation. How do I handle it? One, either I can walk them through it step by step, or I just tell people, hey, come on down. We'll take care of it. Something takes 5, 10, 15 minutes, done, out the door they go.
Was Russell the one that got that random call to you?
He's had a few random calls.
We have a guy by the name of Russell. He has an awesome set of cars. He's one of my good friends. Tons of character. I love calling him all the time. He's just a valuable resource. But he's the one that it preaches your, what do you call it? It's their church of final inspection. Because he really does sign off on like all the work that's done here. And it was funny because he's the one that really said, hey, you got to check this guy out. And I had seen you at some shows with this car over here, I think it was.
Yes, I believe it was that car.
And it was hard to miss the amount of noise it made. So that was really good. But that was the thing is when I saw it, I was like, I would check some of this stuff out. And he came over and kind of showed it. It was great that we finally got to make it down and do that.
Yeah.
So let's say I got my Ferrari. I did the first steps. I don't drive the car that much. How often should I expect to come in and see you?
If it's more of a garage queen, something that's, a Sunday driver, I usually tell people once or twice a year. for a refresh, depending, again, mileage, how you maintain the vehicle. A lot of people like to come in, obviously, early spring, March, April, May, they're busy months. And if everything's good, we do what we got to do. And then depending on how much you drive it during the season, sometimes I have people, they come back, September, October before they put their cars away. Obviously, daily driven vehicles, not Ferraris and trucks, they're going to come see me a lot more.
Right. Now, let's say a car is in storage for a while, is there any kind of damage that can happen to paint while it's in storage? With the dust and all that?
Not so much the dust. What I've seen, I've ran into a lot of situations where the biggest question I get is car covers.
Yeah.
Car covers.
But I'm glad we're talking about that.
We can spend a whole day talking about car covers. From my personal experience, I don't like car covers. People look at me like I got 10 heads, but I personally don't like them.
You see the other end of it.
Exactly. I usually fix the damage caused by car covers.
Okay.
If a car's 100% clean, looking good, and you got a perfectly clean car cover, okay, fine, you want to put a car cover on it. I wouldn't put a car cover on a car that's sitting outside. Yeah. Because what happens is, we're in the Northeast, we get those wind and rain storms.
Snowstorms, yeah.
The car cover just slaps and beats the daylights out of the paint.
Mine, it rains and it seals to the car.
Yeah.
And then somebody wants to come over and adjust it, and I'm like, you are just, might as well take sandpaper to it.
So what I recommend, if you got a nice storage facility you're putting your car in and the car's nice and clean, they make thin, clear plastic, almost like painter sheets.
Yeah.
They're super thin.
That's what my grandfather used.
Roll them out. They're soft. I do it on here with vehicles sometimes. If I got other vehicles that are done and they're tucked away in the corner, I got painter's plastic. I'll just wrap the vehicle in that, and it's perfectly safe.
Do you want to hear my pet peeve? You're going to love this. So we used to, obviously, worked with Rolls. I work with Bentleys.
Yep.
Not so much Lamborghini guys. The Lamborghini guys they'll do the touchless. The McLaren guys are too, the touchless stuff that I'm kind of like, I'm not feeling that. I'd rather, do it right. But sometimes they're in a rush, so I kind of have to, cut them some slack. So they've been to you 3 times, and this 4th time, they're like, I'm just going to do the touchless.
Yeah.
So, okay, I get it. But, the paint is important. But for the Rolls and the Bentley guys, they love their Jersey. The Jersey, you know what I'm talking about? It's like a broom, but
the car dusters?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, no. Throw those. I've literally thrown customers' dusters in the trash.
I could literally look at them, and I was like, I can see it scarring the paint.
Yeah.
It would capture a piece of whatever, and as it streaked across it, I know it sounds really good, and especially we do the big car shows in Boston, so you'd have Rolls, Bentley, and then whatever. We later had Astons and not Astons, but Maserati, and that was the thing is that it didn't matter as long as the luxury style stuff outbusted that thing, and I'm like, no, do not touch that car with this.
Oh yeah, no,
horrifying.
And again, people look at me like I got 10 heads when I tell them that. Again, if your vehicle's already swirled and scratched and everything, and you bust out your duster, chances are you're not really doing much more damage than already there. Mm-hmm. But when you got a mirror polished black vehicle or any vehicle,
which a lot of these guys had the stainless things in them,
and you drag that duster across, especially pollen. Mm-hmm. Pollen, people don't realize. Pollen's not soft like a cotton ball. No. Pollen's very jagged.
And it's big.
And it latches on, and that will scratch your paint to no end. So you really need to use something that has some lubricity. The big one we see a lot of, and I think the general public's a lot more aware of now, is rail dust, or we call industrial fallout, brake dust.
Really?
You see that vehicles being shipped in containers and whatever else. I've worked at plenty of new car dealers, and I mean, they come off the car carrier, and they have all these, people think it's rust. They look like little rust specks.
Okay.
And essentially it is. It's ferrous metal, brake dust, rail dust from
I can imagine how much
and that stuff just gets right in the paint. Now we got to remove that. So
now you do your
we do our iron
check in and now there's got a car that it's literally scarring itself on the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many people have bought new cars and then brought the new cars in and you see any kind of paint damage?
More than you would like to know.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
More, what I've learned, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but I know every state's different, but you can have a vehicle, say, that's been damaged at the port. Mm-hmm. Up to a certain amount of the cost of that vehicle, whether it's 5%, 10%, they don't have to report that damage.
Right, exactly.
So if say it's 10%, you have an $80,000 vehicle, you can have a hefty amount of damage on your new vehicle
man.
that got fixed
Yep.
and never was reported.
Right.
So, case in point, years ago, I had a gentleman who ordered a brand new Hellcat at the time, Charger. They would just come out. It was pearl white, beautiful.
His bumpers were perfect, but his paint was awful.
Everything was pretty good up until we got to the passenger front door and the fender, and I saw pearl white overspray, and I saw DA sanding marks.
Really?
Oh, yeah, and I had to call a customer. I'm like, hey, just so you know, your nice new Challenger with 500 miles on it has already had paint work on it.
Right.
And at that point, there's not much you can do about it. We fixed it, made it look right.
Yeah.
Out the door it goes. So, but it's tough. I hate being the bad guy.
Yeah. Well, we're about to close up here, but one thing I wanted to ask you at kind of the ending here is if you have any advice to give to these people. Obviously, I always say stuff like, make sure you clean your car regularly, get a ceramic coat to it, take care of it in a good way. If there's something that you can advise to these people that I haven't covered, what would be the number one thing?
I would say first and foremost, do your research. Whether it's myself, there's plenty of good detailers out there, just like there's plenty of bad ones, just like any in walks of life. There's, any sort of industry. There's good ones, there's bad ones.
Mm-hmm.
Do your research, look at their reviews, find out what types of vehicles they're doing, what services do they offer. So really, don't be afraid to do your research. Also, don't always go by the cheapest quote. That's the worst. So if somebody's
and don't take internet advice.
Yeah, that too. If you get 3, 4, 5 quotes from different shops, and all of them are within $100, $200 of each other, depending on the service, and then you got one that's super low, like a third of that.
That's not the guy.
That's probably not going to be your guy. There's a reason, that he's that low. Yeah. So I would say just do your research first and foremost.
Okay, so if these, I'm sure everybody out here, look at this. If you don't want to get your car detailed here, there's something wrong. You're backlogged right now anyway, too, right?
I'm usually about a 4 to 6 week backlog.
Well, that's not too bad.
Yeah, depending on the time of season.
If you guys are quick, you could jump in and get it right when it's winter time and get your car clean so it'll be ready for next year's season.
Yep.
So if they want to come see you and find you, where would be the best places to go?
You can look me up on Facebook, obviously, Final Inspection Auto Detailing. You can call me, 508-269-8124. You can send me a message through my Facebook page, Instagram at Final Inspection Auto Detailing. I'm on Google, so it's appointment only, so I like to have people, reach out ahead of time. And normally what I suggest is for them to come on down. We meet face to face, do an assessment of the vehicle, discuss what their concerns are. And
that's probably my fear, because every time I think about bringing my actual car down or any of my cars, I don't want you to look at it, because I just want to I don't want to horrify you.
Yeah,
so
it's all right. But
how much paint correction can you?
Yeah, you know what? Because, again, not to, talk on here, but a lot of people don't realize how some people think their vehicle's a mess, and it's really not that bad. Other people think their vehicle's great, and then it's a whole...
I think I dread the second one.
Yeah.
I would rather be that first guy.
Yeah.
Because that's me. I'm going to obsess over every little, every spot bugs me. And you'll come in, you'll be like, nah, that's no big deal. I just buff that. Yeah. But that thing is, I'd rather be that first guy than the guy that doesn't know and has been driving it through concrete and gravel all with. And with the construction that we have on our road, we have 4 seasons here. We have winter, summer, more winter, and construction. So if there's any place up here that somebody, you've been through hell and back fixing cars, this is the place to do it. So, hey, thank you for letting me come out one more time.
Appreciate it.
It was awesome. We're going to be back for more. Obviously, this is not the last time we'll be here, and we're going to check some more. I'm going to have, right? And I got to have you as a guest on some of the other shows too.
Absolutely.
And hopefully we'll have them at one of these car shows, and you guys can come up and say hello and see some of these cool cars in person. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, we got some of these other videos to check out. Don't forget to like and subscribe. You don't want to miss any of the new stuff that we have coming in. And as always, folks, don't forget to drive.